Evelyn Carter. The package nearly slipped from my hands. I hadn't heard that name spoken aloud since I was 8 years old, and according to every record I had ever found, Evelyn Carter had died 19 years ago. The man standing across from me didn't repeat it. He didn't need to. 6 men in dark suits had gone silent around the long table behind him, and somehow their silence frightened me more than shouting would have. "My name is Claire Bennett," I said. He looked at me with calm gray eyes. "That's what they told you." My pulse stumbled. 20 minutes earlier, this had been nothing more than my last delivery of the night. A black box, 6 inches wide, no return address, and a customer willing to pay nearly 10 times my normal rate for one instruction: hand delivery. No front desk. I should have declined it. Instead, rent was due Monday, so I followed the app to the Belgrave Hotel in Midtown, rode 42 floors above Manhattan, and knocked on the door it gave me. The man who answered was Adrian Moretti. I knew the name. Most New Yorkers did, though people usually lowered their voices when they said it. Moretti ran a powerful organization with interests stretching across the city, and the rumors surrounding him were enough to make sensible people keep their distance. He was 34, controlled, sharply dressed, and so quiet that everyone else seemed louder by comparison. He hadn't asked who I was. He had looked at the silver bird engraved beneath the package, then at my face, and called me Evelyn. I backed toward the door. "I delivered your package. Whatever game this is, I'm not part of it. You are now." His voice stayed level, not threatening. Certain. I came to the wrong room. Something changed in his expression. "No." Adrian picked up his phone. "Check the delivery account. Find who created it. Lock down the hotel camera records before anyone can erase them." One of the men immediately left. Adrian turned toward another. "Street surveillance." A tablet appeared seconds later. He studied the screen while I stood there wondering why my childhood name was suddenly inside a Mafia Boss's penthouse. Then Adrian angled the tablet toward me. Across the street, a black SUV had stopped beneath a streetlight. 4 men stepped onto the sidewalk and looked directly toward the hotel entrance. "Do you know them?" he asked. "No." Good. That answer somehow made him more concerned. He set the unopened package on the table and examined it without touching the latch. "You weren't paid to bring this to me, Claire." Hearing my current name from him felt almost as unsettling as hearing the old one. "Then why am I here?" Adrian's gaze settled on the silver bird. For the first time, I saw something beneath his composure. Recognition. Maybe even memory. "Because someone wanted me to see you carrying it." His phone vibrated. He read the message once, and the entire room seemed to tighten around him. "What does it say?" I asked. Adrian slowly turned the screen toward me. The message contained 7 words. "Open the box, Moretti. Let Evelyn watch." I forgot how to breathe. Adrian looked from the message to me, then to the package that had somehow crossed 19 years to reach this room. "Claire," he said quietly, "whoever sent you here knows exactly who you are." Adrian did not open the box. That was the first thing that surprised me. A man at the far end of the table asked if they should move me somewhere safer, but Adrian ignored the question and studied the message on his phone. "Bring me another box," he said. Nobody asked why. Less than 2 minutes later, one of his men returned carrying a plain black case almost identical in size to the package I had delivered. Adrian transferred nothing between them. He simply closed the empty case and handed it over. "Use the south elevator. Put it in the sedan. Take the usual route." I stared at him. "You are sending an empty box?" His gray eyes shifted to mine. "I am sending them what they expect to follow." The sedan left the Belgrave 5 minutes later. On the tablet, the black SUV across the street moved almost immediately. Adrian watched both vehicles disappear from the camera feed, then made one quiet call. "Follow the followers. Do not approach them. I want to know where they report." He ended the call and finally turned toward my package. My hands were still cold. "You knew they would follow it." I suspected. "And if you were wrong, then I would learn something else." That answer told me more about Adrian Moretti than any rumor ever could. He did not guess. He created situations where every possible reaction gave him information. He put on a pair of thin gloves and examined the silver bird beneath the box. "This symbol belonged to the Carter family," he said. "My family?" "Yes." "Then tell me what happened to them." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Not until I know who brought them back into my city." "My city?" He said it without arrogance. Somehow that made it sound more true. He opened the latch. I had expected money, documents, maybe something dangerous enough to explain the men outside. Instead, there were only 3 objects inside: an old brass key, a photograph burned along one edge, and a white chess piece. A queen. I reached for the photograph, but Adrian caught my wrist gently before my fingers touched it. Wait. He inspected the paper first, then released me. The woman in the photograph had pale skin, dark blonde hair, and my eyes. I knew those eyes because I saw them every morning in the mirror. Who is she? My voice barely worked. Adrian answered immediately. Margaret Carter. Something inside me dropped. Your mother. I stared at him. My adoptive parents had told me almost nothing about the people I came from. Adrian seemed to know more about my first 8 years than I did. I turned the photograph over. For words had been written across the back in faded ink. The traitor is still here. Adrian went completely still. One of his men approached with a phone. Boss, we identified the vehicle. Vescari connection. The room changed. I did not know who Vescari was, but everyone else did. Adrian looked toward the 6 men around his table. Only the people in this room knew I would be here tonight. Nobody moved. I finally understood. The package was not merely about me. Someone had used my past to send Adrian a warning about his present. He placed the brass key beside the white queen. Whoever arranged this delivery knows Moretti business, Carter history, and Claire's identity. Then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room for perhaps 3 seconds. When the emergency lights came on, Adrian had not moved. Neither had I. But the brass key was gone. Adrian looked at the empty place beside the chess piece. Then, slowly, he looked around his own table. Nobody leaves. The key was never on the table. Adrian's voice was so calm that for a second I thought I had misunderstood him. One of the 6 men glanced toward the empty space beside the white chess queen. Adrian reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and placed the real brass key on the table. That one is. Nobody spoke. I stared at him. You planted a fake? I needed to know whether the warning was real. He turned toward a broad-shouldered man near the windows. Marcus. Marcus checked something on his phone. Signal is moving west, boss. Adrian had marked the duplicate. The blackout had not surprised him. He had expected someone in this room to reach for the key, and instead of stopping them, he had given them exactly what they wanted. A way to betray him. You knew there was an insider, I whispered. I knew someone wanted me looking for one. Adrian slipped the real key back into his pocket. Those are not the same thing. That distinction stayed with me. He did not trust the obvious answer, even when the evidence seemed perfect. 10 minutes later, the doors opened. Adrian did not order anyone searched. He simply told his men to return to their normal schedules. Confusion crossed several faces. If the person who took it thinks we discovered nothing, he explained, they will finish the delivery for us. Then he looked at me. You should go home. I almost laughed. You just told me my name is not my name, showed me a photograph of my mother, and discovered someone inside your organization knew I would be here. Now I should go home. Yes. Why? Because if I keep you here, I become another man making decisions about your life. I had no answer for that. Adrian arranged a car. I refused it and left alone. 40 minutes later, I reached my apartment in Queens and knew something was wrong before I opened the door. The hallway light was on. I always turned it off before leaving. Inside, nothing looked stolen. My television was there. My laptop sat untouched. Even the cash in the ceramic bowl beside the kitchen remained. Someone had searched for one specific thing. The storage box from my adoptive mother was missing. My childhood records, adoption papers, old photographs, everything connected to the years before I became Claire Bennett. Almost everything. One photograph had fallen behind the bookshelf. I pulled it free and recognized myself at 8 years old, standing beside my adoptive mother. On the back was handwriting I had never noticed. If anyone ever calls you Evelyn, do not trust Moretti. Run. My phone rang. Adrian. I answered without speaking. Your apartment was entered before you reached the Belgrave, he said. My stomach tightened. How do you know? I had the building camera records checked after we identified the Vescari vehicle. I looked at the warning again. Did your family kill mine? Silence. 3 seconds. Maybe 4. My father gave an order concerning the Carters. My fingers went numb. So it was you. No, his voice became quieter. I was 15 years old, Claire, and I was the one who disobeyed him. Before I could respond, someone spoke near Adrian. I heard only fragments, then his tone changed. Where? Another pause. Do not approach him. I gripped the phone. What happened? Adrian answered with the same controlled precision he had shown all night. The false key just stopped moving. Where? At my consigliera's house. Do not arrest him. Adrian's words came through the phone before I could ask why. If my consigliera has the false key, I want to know who he gives it to. I stood in my apartment, holding the photograph with my mother's warning on the back, trying to understand how Adrian could sound so controlled while discovering betrayal inside his own organization. You think he is working for Vescari? I asked. I think someone wants me to think that. By sunrise, I was back at the Belgrave. I told myself I returned for answers, not because Adrian Moretti was the only person who seemed to have any. He stood beside the windows overlooking Manhattan, already dressed for another day, while 3 phones and a city map covered the table. His men spoke quietly around him. Adrian barely spoke at all. He pointed to locations, asked short questions, and somehow moved an entire organization with fewer words than most people use to order breakfast. Your consigliera? I asked when we were alone, still being watched. Why not confront him? Because frightened men protect themselves. Confident men reveal themselves. He placed the burned photograph of Margaret Carter between us. You wanted the truth. My chest tightened. All of it. 19 years ago, your father handled financial records for my family. He discovered someone was secretly feeding information to the Vescari organization. Before he could identify the person publicly, my father was told the Carters had betrayed us. And he believed it. Adrian's expression hardened. Yes. He ordered my family removed. Yes. The word landed heavily between us. And you? I asked. Adrian looked at the photograph rather than me. I was 15. I heard enough of the conversation to know something was wrong. I went to your house before the men following my father's orders arrived. A memory moved through me like light beneath a locked door. Darkness. Rain against glass. A staircase. A boy kneeling in front of me. I pressed my fingers against my temple. You were there. Adrian finally met my eyes. You were hiding inside a pantry. My breath stopped. I had never told anyone that. You would not come out until I promised I knew your mother. Another fragment returned. A dark coat around my shoulders. A teenage voice saying my name softly. Not Evelyn. Evie, I whispered. Something changed in Adrian's face. That is what I called you. The room suddenly felt too small. You took me out. Through the service entrance. Daniel Reeves was waiting 2 blocks away. Your mother had arranged it before she disappeared. I stared at the Mafia Boss standing before me and saw, for one impossible second, the 15-year-old boy buried beneath him. Why did you never find me? I tried. His answer came immediately. Every record said Evelyn Carter died that night. One of Adrian's phones vibrated. He checked the screen, and whatever softness had entered his expression vanished. The Mafia Boss returned. The false key moved, he said. Where? My consigliera passed it to an intermediary. The intermediary contacted Vescari. Then you found your traitor. No. I found a route. He turned the city map toward me. Now I find who opened it. Adrian sent a message from his phone. What did you do? Gave them something worth stealing. He had planted false information claiming the real package contained Carter financial records. Only a small circle inside Moretti would receive that information. Whoever passed it to Vescari would identify the breach. 20 minutes later, a response arrived. Adrian read it twice. For the first time since I had met him, genuine surprise crossed his face. What? I asked. He set the phone down. The information did not go directly to Vescari. Then where did it go? His gray eyes lifted to mine. Through a Moretti Foundation account controlled by my younger brother. Do not touch my brother. Adrian said it before anyone in the room could move. His gray eyes remained fixed on the transaction record glowing across the tablet. If someone routed the information through his account, they wanted me to see his name. I watched the men around him exchange uneasy looks. You think he was framed? I asked. I think certainty is expensive. Adrian turned to Marcus. Freeze nothing. Change nothing. Let every account behave normally. Marcus nodded. And your brother? He hears none of this. Adrian was already moving to the next problem. By noon, his people had traced the delivery account that had brought me to the Belgrave. What they found made my stomach tighten. Someone had been monitoring my work schedule for 4 months. My routes. My usual hours. Even how often I accepted late deliveries. They were watching me before yesterday, I said. Yes. Adrian placed a printed timeline in front of me. And you never went to the wrong room. I looked up. The application changed the destination 47 seconds before you accepted the delivery. My mouth went dry. So the Belgrave was always the destination. I was always the destination. That meant someone had not merely discovered Evelyn Carter was alive. They had designed a path that would put me directly in front of Adrian Moretti. He removed the real brass key from his pocket. Now we find out why. The key belonged to a private safe deposit facility in Lower Manhattan. Adrian did not bring an army with him. He brought Marcus, me, and enough authority that the manager stopped asking questions after hearing his name. Inside the box was a thin leather ledger and a sealed envelope marked Evie. My hands shook when I opened it. The handwriting matched the warning on the photograph. My mother. Evie, if you are reading this, then the truth survived longer than we did. I swallowed hard and kept reading. She wrote that my father had discovered hidden payments connecting someone inside Moretti to Vescari. The ledger contained the transactions, but the final page identifying the account holder was missing. Someone removed it, I whispered. Adrian studied the binding. Recently, a faint line of dust showed where the page had been protected for years. Someone had reached this box before us, taken exactly what could identify the traitor, then left everything else behind. My mother's letter ended with one sentence that made Adrian go still. The man who orders our deaths will someday stand beside the boy who saved you. She knew, I said. She knew the person responsible was close to your family. Adrian's phone rang before he could answer. Marcus listened to another call beside us, then handed Adrian a second phone. 3 Moretti operations had been disrupted within minutes of each other. Vescari had ended 7 years of uneasy peace. Adrian did not raise his voice. He issued instructions with frightening precision, redirected shipments, closed access to 2 compromised accounts, and deliberately abandoned 1 minor territory. Why give them anything? I asked after he ended the calls. Because Vescari believes I am reacting. His eyes were cold now. Calculating. I want them confident enough to show me who they are coordinating with. He left with Marcus to manage the crisis, but I stayed behind with my mother's letter. Something about the paper bothered me. Near the bottom, the fibers looked different. I held it beneath the desk lamp. Slowly, faint brown letters appeared between the lines, written in heat-sensitive ink. I read them twice before my heart began pounding. Never tell Adrian what happened to his mother. What happened to your mother? I asked the moment Adrian returned. He stopped halfway across the room. Behind him, Marcus quietly closed the door, leaving us alone with the ledger and the sentence hidden in my mother's letter. Adrian read it once. His expression barely changed, but his hand remained on the paper longer than necessary. She died 19 years ago. The same year my family disappeared. Yes. You never thought that was connected? His eyes lifted to mine. I was told her car went off a mountain road in upstate New York during a storm. Something inside me tightened. My mother knew differently. Adrian pulled out his phone. Within seconds, the Mafia Boss replaced the son. Marcus, retrieve every record concerning my mother's death. Insurance, police reports, property records, telephone logs. Nothing digital only. I want originals. He ended the call and looked at the ledger. Your mother and mine knew each other. It was not a question. We found proof less than an hour later. Between 2 ledger pages was an impression left by handwriting from a missing sheet. Adrian shaded the paper lightly with a pencil. 2 names emerged. Margaret Carter, Sophia Moretti. Beneath them was a date 3 weeks before both families were shattered. My mother had not been investigating alone. Adrian's mother had been helping her. The revelation should have answered something. Instead, it made everything worse. If Sophia knew there was a traitor inside Moretti, I said, someone had 2 reasons to silence the investigation. Adrian stared at the names. For one brief second, grief crossed his face. Then it disappeared behind calculation. And that person has had 19 years to bury the evidence. His phone vibrated. Vescari had moved again, exactly where Adrian expected. The territory he had deliberately surrendered had drawn out 2 financial intermediaries. Instead of confronting them, Adrian ordered his people to circulate a false message claiming the missing ledger page was being sold that evening. You are baiting the traitor, I said. I am giving him a deadline. What happens when he panics? He contacts the person he trusts most. By late afternoon, the answer arrived. The false information traveled through the consigliera, touched the foundation account controlled by Adrian's brother, then moved somewhere neither of us expected. A private line registered to Vincent Moretti, Adrian's uncle, the man who had raised him after his father died, the man who had taught him how to run the Moretti organization. Adrian stared at the number without speaking. Could someone be framing him too? I asked. Possibly. He sounded almost detached. So what do you do? Make him believe I suspect everyone except him. That evening, Adrian sent his brother away on legitimate business, reassigned the consigliera without accusation, and invited Vincent to breakfast the next morning as if nothing had happened. Watching him work unsettled me. His power was not loud. It was patience. He could discover that the man closest to him might have betrayed his family and still think 3 moves ahead. Then Adrian placed a passport, cash, and a set of car keys in front of me. What is this? A choice. You want me to leave? I want you to be able to. I stared at him. And if I stay? His gaze held mine. Then you stay because you decided to, not because a Moretti decided for you. 19 years ago, he had helped a frightened little girl escape. Tonight, he opened the door again. I looked at the passport, then at my mother's letter. I am staying. Adrian gave one small nod. His phone rang. Vincent. Adrian answered on speaker. His uncle's voice was warm, almost amused. Before you decide I betrayed you, Adrian, ask Evelyn one question. Adrian's eyes moved to me. What question? Vincent paused. Ask her who really sent the package. The call ended. And suddenly I realized that after everything we had uncovered, we still had no idea who had started this. My mother sent it. The words came out before I could stop them. Adrian did not react. He simply turned the black box beneath the lamp and studied every seam again. Your mother has been dead 19 years. Her letter survived. The ledger survived. Maybe she arranged the delivery before she died. A 19-year-old plan could not know your work schedule 4 months ago. He was right. Again. By midnight, Adrian's people had traced the payment behind my delivery through 7 temporary accounts and 3 shell companies. The final account carried a name that made my knees weak. Margaret Carter. For one impossible second, hope overpowered reason. Could she be alive? Adrian's answer was gentle but firm. The account is old. Activity is not proof of life. He ordered the original banking records retrieved instead of trusting the digital trail. What came back changed everything. My mother had created the account 19 years earlier with instructions that remained dormant until someone entered a specific authorization phrase. A dead man protocol. Who knew the phrase? I asked. Marcus placed an archived document on the table. 2 authorized names appeared on it. Margaret Carter. Vincent Moretti. My stomach dropped. Then Vincent activated it. Adrian shook his head. He could activate the money. He could not know you deliver packages on Thursday nights. He walked to the window, Manhattan glowing beneath him. There is a third person. Adrian did not search blindly. He built another trap. Before sunrise, he released false information through 3 separate channels. According to the story, I had decoded the missing ledger page and planned to hand it to federal authorities the next morning. Each channel contained one tiny difference, allowing Adrian to identify whoever leaked it. Now we wait. I asked. No, he picked up his coat. Now everyone else moves. By afternoon, Vescari began shifting money out of 2 businesses. Vincent canceled breakfast and disappeared from his normal schedule. But a third reaction came from Queens. Someone accessed the delivery platform using credentials tied to the original order, then sent me a location, an old storage facility near Long Island City. Adrian wanted his people around the building. I refused to stay behind. This started with me. His eyes held mine. And it can end without you walking into another person's plan. You gave me a choice last night. Silence. Then one nod. You stay beside me. Not behind him. Beside him. The storage unit contained no ambush, no Vescari men. Only an older man sitting beneath a fluorescent light with a weathered briefcase at his feet. I stopped breathing. I knew his face even with the gray hair. Daniel Reeves. My adoptive father. The man I had buried 3 years ago. Claire, he whispered. My legs nearly failed me. You died. His eyes filled with regret. I needed Vincent to believe that. Adrian remained perfectly still. You sent her to me. Daniel nodded. Margaret designed the protocol. I activated the final stage when Vincent found me again. I could not approach Moretti directly. I needed Evelyn standing in front of you before Vincent understood you were working together. He opened the briefcase and removed a single yellowed ledger page. The missing page. My hands trembled as I read the account numbers. dates, coded transfers, and one signature at the bottom. Daniel looked at Adrian. Your father did not order the Carter family destroyed. He was manipulated with false evidence. Adrian's face became unreadable. By whom? I already knew. The signature was clear. I turned the page toward him. Vincent Moretti. Vincent does not know we have the page. Adrian folded the evidence once and returned it to Daniel's briefcase. I expected anger. Instead, the colder Adrian became, the more everyone around him seemed to understand that the game had changed. If you confront him now, he runs, Daniel said. He will not run. Adrian looked at Marcus. Invite him to the Belgrave tonight. Tell him I am prepared to negotiate with Vescari. Marcus hesitated. And Vescari? Invite them too. I stared at Adrian. You are putting them in the same room? I am letting each side believe the other is about to betray them. By 8 that evening, we were back where everything had started. The same penthouse, the same long table. But this time Adrian had arranged every chair. His younger brother sat near the windows. His consigliere sat opposite him. Vincent arrived smiling, dressed like a man attending a family dinner instead of walking into a trap. 2 Vescari representatives followed minutes later. Adrian remained at the head of the table. He did not accuse anyone. He placed the white chess queen from the package in front of him. Vincent's smile disappeared for half a second. Adrian noticed. So did I. 7 years of peace ended because someone promised Vescari access to Moretti accounts, Adrian said. One representative leaned forward. That accusation requires proof. I agree. Adrian slid 3 financial reports across the table. Each contained different false information he had released earlier. Only one version had reached Vescari. The version given through Vincent's private line. Vincent barely blinked. You are trusting paperwork over family? No, Adrian said. I am trusting patterns. Vincent looked at me then, and I understood why my mother had hidden me. He did not see Claire Bennett. He saw unfinished business. The girl has confused you, he said. Adrian's voice remained quiet. Claire has clarified several things. Vincent laughed softly. You think Margaret Carter left you enough evidence? That was his mistake. Nobody had mentioned my mother's first name. The room went silent. Adrian leaned back. Thank you. Vincent's expression changed. For what? For confirming you knew who prepared the ledger. Marcus closed the doors. Not dramatically. Simply finally. Vincent turned toward the Vescari men, but they were already studying him differently. Adrian had shown them records proving Vincent had been moving money through both organizations for years, making each family believe the other was responsible for missing revenue. You used them, I said. Vincent looked at me. I survived them. And Sophia Moretti? Adrian asked. His uncle's confidence finally cracked. Your mother should have stayed out of business. She did not understand. Adrian's hand tightened once against the table. Nothing more. Daniel had brought one final object from the storage unit. The white queen. I picked it up, remembering how strangely heavy it had felt. The base twisted loose. Inside was a narrow strip of microfilm. My mother had hidden the final transaction records inside the very object Vincent had watched Adrian receive. Adrian examined the evidence, then looked at his uncle. You spent 19 years controlling what everyone believed. Vincent's voice hardened. Everything I did preserved this family. No, Adrian said. It preserved your place in it. He ordered Vincent removed from all Moretti authority and turned the financial evidence over to attorneys who could expose the legitimate crimes without putting innocent people at risk. Vincent stared at him. You have become weak. Adrian did not rise. If I needed cruelty to prove I had power, then I never had power. I looked at him and remembered the 15-year-old boy who had opened a door for me 19 years earlier. Vincent had mistaken restraint for weakness twice. It had cost him everything. I thought the truth was finally complete. Then Daniel touched my shoulder and handed me a sealed envelope in my mother's handwriting. Across the front were 7 words. For Adrian, when he knows the whole truth. Read it, I told Adrian. For the first time since I had met him, the Mafia Boss hesitated. The Belgrave had gone quiet after Vincent was removed from Moretti authority. The Vescari representatives had left knowing their secret arrangement with Vincent had collapsed, Adrian's brother had been cleared, and the consigliere was being questioned about what he had unknowingly carried between the 2 organizations. Adrian still controlled the room, still controlled Moretti. But when he opened my mother's envelope, he looked less like the man who commanded half the city's underworld and more like the 15-year-old boy who had once found me hiding in a pantry. He read silently. Then he handed me the letter. Margaret had written it for him 19 years earlier. Adrian, if Evelyn survives, remember this. Saving someone once does not give you ownership of the life they build afterward. Protect her if she asks. Help her if she needs it. But never confuse love with possession. My throat tightened. Adrian looked toward the Manhattan skyline. Your mother understood my world better than most people in it. She understood you. He shook his head. She knew a 15-year-old boy. Maybe she knew what that boy could become. Silence settled between us. Not empty silence. The kind filled with everything neither of us knew how to say. Over the next several weeks, Adrian rebuilt what Vincent had damaged. I watched from a distance as he removed compromised people, restored agreements Vincent had manipulated, separated legitimate businesses from questionable accounts, and forced Vescari back into the boundaries of their old arrangement. He did not surrender power. He became more precise with it. Daniel gave investigators and attorneys everything he had preserved, then finally stopped living like a dead man. I had more trouble deciding what to do with Evelyn Carter. There were documents proving she existed. A birth certificate, school records, photographs, pieces of a childhood stolen from me before I understood what identity meant. Adrian placed every document in a folder and gave it to me. What happens now? I asked. Whatever you choose. You do not have an opinion? A faint smile touched his face. I have many. None of them outrank yours. I kept Claire Bennett. Evelyn Carter was not a lie, but Claire was not one either. Claire had survived foster paperwork, college applications, overdue rent, bad jobs, lonely birthdays, and 19 years of becoming someone without knowing where she began. 3 weeks later, I returned to the Belgrave after sunset. I stood outside the same penthouse door where one delivery had broken my life open. Adrian answered himself. No meeting behind him this time. No mysterious box in my hands. Claire, he said. One word. My chosen name. Somehow it meant more because he knew the other one. That is better, I said. He stepped aside, leaving the doorway open. He did not reach for me. He did not tell me to stay. He simply gave me the choice. I crossed the threshold on my own. Then I stopped and looked back at him. Adrian. Yes. 19 years ago, a frightened little girl had trusted a boy enough to follow him into the rain. Now I understood that trust was not something one rescue could preserve forever. It had to be earned again. You can call me Evie sometimes. Adrian went completely still. The man who could move money, territory, and powerful men with a sentence had no immediate answer. Then his expression softened. Only when you want me to. I smiled. That was the answer I needed. The first night we met, he knew the name buried with my past. But love did not begin when the Mafia Boss discovered who I had been. It began when the most powerful man I knew gave me something power could never buy. The freedom to decide who I would become.